Our marriages are actually supposed to be something that refreshes us on a daily basis. You know, if we are in a point of exhaustion because of work or because of life in general, or, you know, we're in a season of super busyness and maybe we feel like we're losing grip on life to an extent just because so much is going on and we're trying to juggle so much. In all reality, when we come home to our spouses and we come back home to our marriages and the life that we have at home, in all reality, that should be a spot that we can go to that's safe, that we can actually re-energize ourselves and get that energy back into our relationship and our life and get rejuiced back up and ready to go defeat the world tomorrow. This week on Marriage, Life, and More, we get into episode 3 of our series on Marriage Reset, Roommates to Soulmates in Your Marriage. We'll be back with that episode right after this. Welcome to Marriage, Life, and More. This is a podcast about marriage, Bible, and book studies, and we occasionally interview people that have inspiring stories. I'm Daniel Moore, your host, and over sitting next to me across the table is my beautiful co-host, my wife, Michelle Moore.
Hey, hey.
Well, thank you guys for joining us this week. If you're not familiar with our show, check out our website at marriagelifeandmore.com. Our platforms are there, are YouTube and Rumble links, and we're also on the Christian podcasting app Edify. We're also on your Alexa and Google smart devices. You can also visit us on social, on Facebook, Instagram, and X at CT Gap Online. If you're a fan of our show, please subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment on our platforms and give us a thumbs up or a 5-star review in Apple Podcast. And we'd be eternally grateful to you for doing that. We do have a few people that's left some things on Apple for reviews and gave us some 5 stars. So we do appreciate those of you that have done that. And those of you that listen on Apple, we'd be appreciative of you if you would do that. That helps our algorithm and helps this podcast to get out to the people that need to hear it. And each week, Michelle and I are constantly hearing from people that are, putting these marriage episodes to the test, and it's really helping their marriages, and that's what this is all about.
Yep.
And we're just thankful for the doors that God has opened, and we just plan on keeping sharing as we go through this new series here. This week, as I said, we're in episode 3, and of course, we've been breaking these episodes into 2 parts up to this point here. And we're going to start this week's episode. This one's entitled Breaking Free from Busyness, How to Reconnect in Your Marriage. Michelle and I, we love comfort food. Whether if it's fried chicken, mashed potatoes, or mac and cheese, there's something about Southern cooking that soothes the soul. So when we found ourselves near Paula Deen's family kitchen in Branson, Missouri, we knew exactly what our next excursion would be. Like kids heading into a candy store, we were thrilled at the idea of diving into biscuits and gravy and all the stick-to-your-ribs goodness that place is known for. More exciting than that, it was all you can eat. Yes, unlimited Southern comfort food in a warm and welcoming restaurant straight out of the home cooking dream. The hostess welcomed us with a smile, and from our very first bite of butter-laced corn casserole, we knew we were in for a legendary night. It was as if all the guardian angels of Southern cuisine had gathered in our honor, ladling out fried okra, creamy mac and cheese, and lip-smacking barbecue pork like it was their holy duty. Michelle and I and our family that was with us were having the best time, laughing, sharing bites, and marveling at how each dish seemed better than the last one. Every time our server stopped by, we ordered another round. It felt more like an adventure than a meal. Well, somewhere around 4 helpings or so, we started to get that familiar full feeling. But there was still ooey gooey butter cake to be had.
Yes.
And I mean, can you really turn down ooey gooey butter cake when it's Paula Deen style? However, we're not professional eaters. We overestimated our abilities in the face of bottomless fried chicken. When our feast was winding down, we realized we had a full plate of untouched food still on the table. But no problem. We just get a to-go container and enjoy comfort food leftovers for the next few days. I mean, that's a win-win, right? Well, that was until we asked our server for a to-go box, and she gently pointed to the fine print at the bottom of the menu. It said, no leftovers may be taken from the restaurant with the all-you-can-eat option. Uneaten food will be charged accordingly. Our hearts sank. It was like someone had yanked the last deviled egg off of our picnic plate. Michelle and I exchanged a look that said, we're in deep gravy. Well, I tried playing the oops, we didn't read the fine print card, tossing in a joke about how my eyes were too distracted by the fried green tomatoes to read anything similar or smaller than a headline. But no luck. The policy was the policy. We faced a dilemma. Should we argue our way out? Nope, that was too messy. Michelle whispered something about faking a food allergy, and I considered pretending to pass out from butter overload. But in the end, there was only one honorable and mildly insane option. Just power through it. Already on the brink of a food coma, we picked up our forks and went back into the ring like culinary gladiators. Bite after bite, we fought the good fight. But with only a few spoons of mashed potatoes and half a biscuit remaining, we waved the white napkin. We were stuffed, defeated not by flavor, but by fullness. We paid the price that day, physically, and yep, we paid for it on the receipt. But now, it's a fun story to tell. If we ever go back to Paula Deen's, we're going to pace ourselves. You know, you have to laugh every time you think about a mountain of food heading to a wide-eyed table of tourists, oblivious to the fine print waiting at the bottom of the menu. And deep down, we salute them. For we too once flew too close to the sun on wings made of fried chicken.
I'm telling you, when I'm reading this, I'm dying. I'm like, that is the writer in Daniel. I'm like, I don't recall all this happening.
Well, all that probably didn't really happen. But
I'm like, you write so well. I'm like, and it sounds so great.
So
just like that, I don't remember all of that.
So my wife doesn't call me a liar. Here's the truth. We did go to Paula Deen's.
We did, and we ate way too much.
And we did eat way too much.
And we did get the fine print of,
we did find out
can't
that,
take that.
Yeah, and that was so disappointing. We had all this food left sitting there on the table, and we couldn't take it. We thought she was joking. We're like, there's no way that you can't take your leftovers home. So if you haven't been to Paula Deen's yet, this is your warning. If you're going to go there to eat, it's all you can eat, and they'll bring you out all this food and everything. But if you don't eat it all, you're paying for food that's getting left there on the table, and it's going in the trash can.
I have to commend you. That almost sounds like a Christmas night story.
Pretty close.
You did a pretty good job.
We may use that this Christmas to read to all of our grandkids. I
think your kids would call you liars because I don't think they remember it that way either.
Probably so.
But that was really good.
But hey, I enjoyed delivering it. It was good entertainment here for about the first 7 minutes of our podcast. So,
I'm cracking up.
And truthfully, there is a reason that I wrote that little story's there.
Most of it was true.
Most of it, yes. So here's the point of that whole story. Besides the fact that we were so overly full that we could barely waddle out of the building when we were done. This week's podcast is about busyness and just being busy in our lives and how that can actually get in the way of our marriage. And, a lot of times as I just shared this story with you, busyness can be a lot like an overflowing plate of fried chicken after you've eaten your fill. What I mean by that is, does it ever seem like answering with busy has become our default response when someone asks how we're doing? We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we first introduced this series about how a lot of times when people say, oh, I haven't seen you in a while or haven't talked to you in a while, and our first response is what?
I'm busy.
I'm busy.
I've been busy.
It's just been so busy. We've been busy with the kids. It's been busy with work. And that's always our go-to. And in all reality, we probably spent 5 of the last 7 evenings sitting on the couch watching TV, It's not totally true. But we can get by with that a lot of times when we're just talking to regular everyday people. But when we start using those excuses with our spouses, and we start letting that get in the front of our marriage and causing problems, it becomes a huge issue.
Yeah.
And it's not something that we can mess around with. And if it happens, we need to fix it. It's almost like it's either a badge of productivity or a subtle cry for help. Whenever we say that we're busy like that, honestly, if our life together could be summed up in a single image, it might just be a table loaded with endless comfort food at Paula Deen's, with plates piling up faster than we can eat. If life were a competitive eating event, Michelle and I probably would have been headliners that day when we were trying to put all that food down. But the real twist, we signed up for this ourselves.
Yeah.
We created this pace, we made those choices, and built this full, bustling life. And we're not complaining. We usually don't complain about any of that kind of thing. We're just being candid about our calendar chaos and the ever-expanding to-do list. Sometimes we feel like that sweet, smiling server is hovering nearby with a polite but firm reminder, keep going or pay for what you left behind. And so we just keep going, bite after bite of everything life is offering. Yet that's not how it is for everyone. Some couples didn't overfill their plates on purpose. Life handed it to them preloaded. Certain seasons bring demands that we can't avoid: shifting jobs, sick parents, special needs, or 3 kids in different activities across different zip codes. Whether busy by design or by necessity, the impact is usually the same. It's incredibly difficult to find meaningful time and energy to pour into each other. The kind of busyness that we're referring to here is born from managing the complexities of life together. Most couples aren't avoiding each other out of spite or falling out of love. They really, truly do care. But somewhere along the way, their lives became so full that they can't seem to find space for each other. Does that sound familiar to you? Maybe you're feeling more like roommates exchanging schedules than romantic partners. Maybe meaningful moments together now come with a side of guilt or calendar reminders. And I think a lot of times, with the statistics like they are today, especially with second marriages, as I was going through this episode and putting it together, I think sometimes, I got to thinking about that. A lot of marriages that are second or third marriages or whatever, they usually come pre-made families.
Yeah.
They already have kids either on one side or on both sides. They might be infants. They might be middle schoolers. They might be high schoolers. You just never know. And so when you look at the family life as being really busy, I think a lot of times, especially in those situations, you can automatically start off your marriage full of busyness already.
Yeah.
Just right off the get-go. How do you feel about that?
I'd agree with that, especially when being married, and having children coming into another marriage. You definitely feel, because a lot of times you're shifting houses and you're trying to split activities and everything else, and you're trying to fit all that and coordinate it all in the calendar, so it makes you even more busy. I know that as a mother, and that's how I felt.
Yeah. Yeah, and if your kids are, high school age, for sure, and the two come together and you're bringing high school kids together, those sports are very demanding. Mm-hmm. If they're playing football or if they're cheering or some of that kind of stuff, you're looking at lots and lots of time on the practice field. And
I feel like, though, as they're older, they can really kind of take care of themselves. I felt like it was when they were younger, because...
And that's probably true.
You had pee-wee football, you had cheer.
You had to stay there.
You had to stay there for practices, and, whether it's an hour, hour and a half, or whatever, you're rushing after work to get changed, get your kids fixed, fed, and then if you're not fed, get them to the practice, get them fed afterwards, baths taken. I mean, I feel like there was a lot more responsibility when they were younger versus as they got older. Because then you could say, pack your stuff. And if you didn't pack it, it's like, why didn't you pack it? That's your fault. It's like, but when they're kids, as a mother, and I know there's fathers out there too that do the same thing. But I do feel the busyness of life is busier when they're younger.
Yeah. And that's just kids. There's other things that, come into that case for busyness also with work and church and friends, and just there's a whole scope of things.
You can actually see how my life rolled around. It was the children.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, we dealt a lot with that. That definitely, and we've explained that before, talked about that in previous episodes, how we did put our kids before us. It's easy to do.
But you're right. It could, it could be multiple different things.
Multiple things.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have you continue here. There's, sometimes we feel like we're living on fast forward. And, life just seems like everything's just double time, And share with us a little bit on that.
Yeah. So the problem with living on fast forward is twofold. It is not only do we feel drained, as discussed earlier, but our connection suffers. Take Ben and Rachel, for example. Married for 16 years, they have 3 kids, a teenage daughter busy with drama club and youth club, a middle schooler who loves science camps and guitar lessons, and a youngest child who just discovered a passion for baseball. They live in a growing suburb not far from a major city. Ben runs a local coffee shop that seems to demand more and more of his time as it becomes increasingly popular. Rachel is a pediatric nurse who often pulls evening shifts. He helps out leading worship at church while she mentors a group of young moms on Saturday mornings. Between work, ministry, and their children's jam-packed schedules, their weeks are a blur. Their daughter often has rehearsals and late-night performances. The middle child has lessons across town and weekend competitions. Their youngest just joined a travel team with practices across state lines. Weeknights look like this. Ben rushes in, tossing car keys on the table as he yells for someone to grab cleats. Rachel arrives moments later, exhausted, juggling her scrubs, the mail and tomorrow's mail prep concerns. They both tag team transportation every night and often not seeing each other until bedtime, if at all. They hastily scarf down drive-through dinners or leftover casserole before falling into bed. Ben might try to finish some payroll while Rachel preps for a presentation for new nurses. They adore each other, but are streamrolled by survival mode. There's no time for folly or flirtation, just managing what's urgent. And though they long to change things, they feel stuck in the rhythm. The real danger for couples like Ben and Rachel isn't just physical exhaustion. It's emotional drift. It's been said that marriage is just dating with paperwork or cohabitating with a contract. But that's not it at all. There's deep richness in the covenant of marriage, benefits beyond the legalities or tax breaks. Studies even show that committed marriages foster the most fulfilling intimacy emotionally and physically. But what makes this relationship truly distinct is the sacred level of intimacy found in that lifelong bond. Paul said in Ephesians that 2 become one flesh, calling it a mystery, and we agree. The kind of trust and unity, that sacred blending of heart, mind, and soul can only happen in the safe space created by shared vows and forever promises. Of course, not every couple instantly reaches that depth or always lives that vulnerable. But it's the potential that's unique and priceless. That's the connection we need to guard carefully. It's what the enemy would love to unravel in your marriage. Because when our schedules overload our souls and we neglect our true intimacy, we risk drifting from the very relationship designed to refresh and ground us. The solution isn't about doing less necessarily, it's about being more intentional with what we've got. Finding the connection again in a small moments, protecting the sacredness of us, even in the busyness of life.
Okay, so with that little story, I think a lot of people probably can relate to that. Mm-hmm. And we probably just read a lot of people's mail when you shared that story, probably. And I do like here, though, that what you just shared there, here in the last paragraph or so, our marriages are actually supposed to be something that refreshes us on a daily basis. Mm-hmm. If we are in a point of exhaustion because of work or because of life in general, or, we're in a season of super busyness and maybe we feel like we're losing grip on life to an extent just because so much is going on and we're trying to juggle so much. In all reality, when we come home to our spouses and we come back home to our marriages and the life that we have at home, in all reality, that should be a spot that we can go to that's safe, that we can actually re-energize ourselves and get that energy back into our relationship and our life and get rejuiced back up and ready to go defeat the world tomorrow, you know? But I think what's disappointing about this scenario here and how this relates with feeling like that you're a roommate after you've been married for a while and you don't see the romantic flares anymore. You don't feel the feelings that you used to feel. And a lot of this stuff has slid to the side. And now when we come home, it almost feels like it's part of the burden. You know, it can get very dangerous when it gets to that point because we have to have somewhere. We obviously want to keep God in our life as a recharging point, obviously, but we've got to have somewhere just within our relationship that's close to us where we can be grounded, somewhere where we can come back and recharge our lives and have that safe space to recharge and be able to start all over again. And, you know, whenever we lose that and we don't have that connection anymore because we're so distracted by everything that's going on around us, then we truly do lose sight of each other. And I know that, you know, in our relationship, as we've talked before, when we had our kids still growing up and everything, you know, I can remember there were times when we felt this way. And it seemed like that we were just constantly running every which direction and we really didn't have a lot of time for us. And, you know, when that time was taking place and everything, do you feel like that you had an awareness that it was happening?
Nope.
I think you're kind of like me, probably.
I didn't even notice it.
Yeah.
I mean, in all reality, as I read this and it was when it says finding the connection again in the small moments, I was like, man, you know, small moments, those were hard and very far and few between, you know, because of the busyness in our life. And I wish I would have recognized that, but no, I didn't even notice it.
I didn't either.
But I was thinking, though, if you really think about it, if you're so busy in life and you're not taking that small time for your husband, where's that time for God?
Yeah.
And I mean, here
That's
I am, I'm speaking to myself because it's like sometimes we just get so busy. And I think when you go start doing that, you do get in the mundane of things. And, sorry, our dog is, you know, whining. So, but you do get in the mundane of things and you slowly start slipping from God. And you don't even see that. You start slipping from your marriage of not trying to make that intimacy. But intimacy is actually, I mean, you start with God.
Yeah.
So you have to make that time for him and you have to make that time for your husband.
Yeah. That is a good point because if we don't have time for us, then you know good and well that there's a lot of times that those couples probably, they don't have their God time. And I know that that's something that we slacked on.
Oh, and 100%.
I think in the long run, I think the combination between your and my failure in our relationship to keep ourselves the important part of it, we also did that to God.
Oh, 100%. We didn't even include God. I mean, even then when we renewed our vows and we put God before us and, you know, even the healing process of the years and to where we're at now, there can be times the busyness of life. I mean, I get busy and I'm like, whoa, stop. I can feel myself not having that intimacy with not just Christ, but you as well.
Yeah.
And so, and I circled true intimacy because I thought to myself, where does true intimacy begin with?
Yeah.
So it's like you have to be careful with the busyness of life that you don't just lose yourself with your husband, but your relationship with Christ as well.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, the heart of a strong marriage and the real vitality that holds it together, it's not just shared responsibility or mutual goals. You know, and a lot of times, you know, you and I, we had a lot of goals.
Yeah.
But we weren't the goal. It's like everything else but us was part of that goal. But the heart of a strong marriage is connection. And just like you just said just a while ago, it's deep intimacy. It's the ability to truly know and be known by your spouse across every layer of life. But the relentless pace of life has a way of stealing that connection right out from under us. When we get overwhelmed and overloaded, emotional and physical distance starts to grow, and with it comes confusion, insecurity, and disconnection. Couples begin to pull away from each other, and this isn't always an intentional thing.
Right.
Just like we just discussed, there's a lot of things we did that we just were not aware of the damage that we was doing to our relationship because we thought we were doing everything for the good of the family. And so it's not intentionally, but it's a gradual pulling away until a quiet loneliness starts to set in. And this pattern is what relationship expert Dr. John Gottman identifies as the distance and isolation cascade. It can quietly take root in any busy household. Love can't survive on autopilot. It needs fuel, it needs time, it needs attention, intentional moments of togetherness. Lots of couples, they think that their love's going to naturally carry them through the chaos of raising kids or navigating careers. I mean, where's that saying come from? Just going to live on love. Remember, heard lots of people say that.
I say it now.
Well,
let's just live on love.
That is not going to happen.
And just go for it.
Yeah. They assume that they'll pick things back up later after all the chaos has happened, once things calm down. But the reality, you're not the same people you were when that busy season began. Over time, routine set in and emotional distance becomes the norm.
Yeah.
Eventually, when the house is quiet again, many couples look across the table and wonder, who's actually sitting over there? Who am I sitting at this table with?
And I really like that because back to the paragraph that you were reading before, when you're talking about not being intentional, but a quiet loneliness sets in. The Distance and Isolation Cascade by Dr. John Gottman. You don't even really think about it. Mm-hmm. The loneliness, what is that? That's Satan.
Yeah.
And how easy is it for us to be so busy that sets in and you don't even realize we've opened the door to the enemy.
Well, this is another place where that kind of mirrors our relationship with God, because what does Satan want us to feel like in our relationship with God? He wants us to feel like we're by ourselves.
Right.
He wants us to feel like that no matter all these problems that we have in life and the things that the roadblocks that we come up against, that we're fighting them on our own. He doesn't want us to remember that God's there and he's got his angels watching over us, and that we can call a legion of angels at any time to come protect us and help us. He wants us to forget that. And then here we are now in our marriages doing the same exact thing. We're allowing Satan to come in, put all this busyness in place. All of these little things happen that we just talked about. And like we said, you look across the table and who is that sitting over there? All of a sudden we feel lonely. That's what Satan wants. He wants us to feel lonely. And, it's something that has to be fixed when that happens. And you can't expect it to come back full circle later either. I think a lot of people do fall for that lie. They're like, well, we're in a season right now. We fell in love once before at one point in time in our life. So I'm sure that if damage is done or whatever, I think we can get this pulled back together later once all this slows down and all this calms down, But then you're doing damage control. You didn't, when you first fell in love the first time, you didn't have a lot of this stuff in your way, the busyness and the chaos and all the things that you're trying to work through. You were just creating a pure love between each other. Well, now if you ignore all of that and let all this stuff happen and damage your relationship to the point where you feel lonely, you really think you can come back later and refix all of that like you did the first time?
I'm going to say, you probably disagree with me on this, but I'm a positive thinker.
Well, I know you can with God.
Yes.
Definitely.
I think there has to be a lot of grace within that, because if both of the spouses are the ones that are constantly busy and you're trying to do damage control, because I know for a fact, if you believe in your marriage, even though you have done things and you've had the busyness of life and you're looking across the table thinking, who is that person?
Yeah.
You had a first love at one time. Go back to the first time that when you fell in love with them and just start all over again.
Yeah. that's a risky thing to take because a lot of couples can't figure that out. I mean, how many couples do we have now that's in church that are struggling because they've forgotten that they need to go back to where it started? And this is part of our series later, and we've talked about this. I think we talked about this in our 4 Laws of Love too, about going back where it began.
Yeah,
because
first love. It
kicks over into Revelation, with the churches and Christ when he's coming back, and he's talking to the 7 churches. He's like, he told one of them, you need to come back to your first love. You've lost it. You put it out there somewhere, forgot all about that, and that concept actually works in marriages also. But a lot of times after we've been through all this mess, and we're left sitting there thinking, okay, what do I do now? We forget that, well, you go back to the basics. You got to start over if that's what that's going to take. I think some people are smart enough to do that, but I think it takes God a lot of times being in the middle of it also, to the Holy Spirit to, prick you and to remind you of those things. But if you choose to still leave God out of it, because just as we discussed a while ago, a lot of times if our marriage is in this spot where we're feeling lonely, we've probably already put God on the back burner also. We've already put him up on the top shelf. And so I think a lot of times, we kind of have a tendency probably still to forget about God even when it comes time to try to put it back together.
Yeah.
You and I we're probably a rare occurrence in some ways because we were so far gone in our relationship. We've told many people the only reason we're together is because of God. We've shared that on this podcast. But if you and I had not came to the point where we allowed God to come back in it, then we wouldn't have fixed it. We would have kept trying to do that on our own. And the possibility is very high there that you may have went ahead and moved out,
I'd agree with that.
But because God got in the middle of that, in the middle of our mess, and he kicked us around a few times and told us to straighten up.
I look where we're at now,
and
to be able to use our testimony to glorify him in what he's done, and especially in marriages.
It's definitely something, and I think God knew, even in the chaos that you and I had created, because we're gonna take the blame for this. It's nothing.
Absolutely.
God didn't put us in the position where we were when our marriage crashed. Me and you chose to do that, just like we talked about at the very beginning of this episode. I think still, when we got through all of that and got to the end of it, God wanted to use all of that for a purpose, and he did put a calling on our life. And I'm thankful for that.
Absolutely.
I'm thankful he rescued us, because now we're in a great place with our marriage, and we're in a great place with helping other couples. And, it takes people that's been through things and have learned lessons and have allowed God to work and to change things in a dramatic way sometimes. It takes people like that to be difference makers in other people's chaos.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful that God's given us this opportunity. And so we're going to go ahead here and close up with this for today, and we'll come back next week and finish this episode. As we leave today, marriage isn't a vehicle that you can leave coasting in cruise control while you manage everything else. Relationships don't thrive on neglect. When we stop investing, stop nurturing and connecting, you're going to slowly drift apart. Think back to your wedding day. Can you honestly remember standing there holding hands, dreaming that one day your relationship would merely be functional? You didn't commit just to get by. You promised to fully give yourselves to each other, to build something meaningful and lasting. And it kind of goes back to what we were saying about thinking about going back to the beginning, to try to remember where all this was at and where it all began. We want to get back to that point. So in the middle of all this madness, how do you move closer instead of further apart? I'm sure that those of you that are stuck in this routine right now that we're talking about today, you're probably thinking, okay, let's get to the solve the problem here. What do we do? How do we fix this? How do you carve out intentional time and energy for the person standing beside you when everything else in life is demanding all of your attention? Well, if you're asking those questions are the ones that matter. And the answers begin with small, consistent investments into each other, one moment at a time.
I like that.
And we're going to have a cliffhanger. we're going to leave it with that this week. We're pushing our time limit here that we're going to try to stay at for our episodes. But that gives you something to come back to next week. We've kind of set the stage here for just being too stinking busy and having too much going on in our life that we're ignoring our mates, ignoring our soulmates, and now we're in this time warp where we're just heading to just being best friends in a house or just being friends in a house, being roommates, and we're wanting to solve that problem. So we'll come back next week with next week's episode, and we're going to start unpacking some of the things that you need to do to solve some of these issues that's created with being too busy. And again, as most things are with marriage, typically when you get into a mess and you get it so deep into a point where it feels like you can't dig yourself back out, a lot of times you can't solve a lot of those problems with one great big thing. It usually takes a lot of small things that you have to do at a moment at a time. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. Just to give you a little spoiler, they're called micro moments.
Ooh.
That's what we're going to talk about next week when we come back on next week's episodes. That's going to give you something to think about. Is there anything that you'd like to add to this week's before we close it that you wanted to share here before we go?
Yes. This is way off topic, but I guess since you guys all kind of know me, I'm just way out there anyways and just say things.
I have a fishing pole. I got to reel her in every once in a while.
Yeah, well, you're going to laugh at this one.
Uh-oh.
We were driving the truck the other day, and this truck is gray, and it's a new truck. Not like a brand new truck, but we purchased a newer truck because his other one died. And so we name our vehicles. And so I did what everybody does. Let's ask AI to give us some names. And so I said it was a Chevy 4-door silver truck. It gave me a list of the names, and this is our little small intimacy moment. We start talking about names, and we named him. It's not a her. I said her, and he said this truck is not a her, it's a him.
It's too tough looking to be a her.
So in our time of just visiting and having our intimacy moment of just downtime for a little bit, she is now called the
He is called. You messed it up. Don't misgender my truck.
He is now called the Silver Stallion.
Boy.
I had to say that because it was pretty cool because we usually don't have a lot of time to ourselves anymore, and
so this is what we do with our time.
I know y'all probably think I'm crazy, but so if you ever see Deen, you can say, hey, he's looking good, the Silver Stallion.
And I'll try not to confuse it with me and my truck, because I might think you're calling me the Silver Stallion. See, I got you back.
I'm sorry, listeners. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we've got to end this episode before it gets out there. All right.
Gosh.
I think we're going to call this a wrap. I am never asking her again. Does she have anything else to add to these podcasts? Oh, goodness. Well,
I hope
this is my life.
I hope that made your day.
Yeah.
See, everybody's not weird. It's just me. So if you ever think you're weird, just listen to this and know you're not.
Yep.
It's just me.
It'll bring you back to reality. You're normal.
It's just me.
Definitely. Well, since she's mentioned it, maybe I'll slip a picture of my Silver Stallion on our Facebook sometime so I can show it off.
Love that thing.
Oh, goodness. Okay, we're going to call this a wrap, and we're going to end this episode this week. We'll be back next week with our next episode, which is the next half of this one on being busy. And we just pray that you guys have a blessed week as you go through the rest of this week. And we pray that after this episode, that your marriage is stronger and your walk with God is closer. This is an extension of Connecting the Gap Ministries. And once again, we pray that you have a blessed week.